Hey friends, in today's video I'm sharing with you some slow living tips and practices that I do right before I head out on a vacation, and I also have something surprising at the end, so stick around. But welcome back to my channel. If you ever need somebody to wish you luck or send you a little bit of luck, definitely don't come to me, because I am less than a week away from being on vacation. I am going on my first vacation that I've been on since I think 2019. Like, I haven't been on a plane since 2019, I think, and I have a cold. I don't know how obvious that is from the sound of my voice, but I have a cold, nothing too serious. I'm already feeling a lot better, but just like the timing of it all is insane. Anyway, like I said, I have not traveled or traveled pretty far aside from road trips in a really long time. I think the last trip that we took, where we took a plane and actually stayed for a significant amount of time, was in 2019, I think fall 2019, when we went to San Francisco. And yeah, we just haven't done any significant trips aside from road trips since. So I'm really excited to be going on vacation despite feeling a little bit funky right now. Fingers crossed I'll be 100% by the time I'm heading out. We are going to be going to Tulum. We've been to Mexico before, but we've never been to the Tulum area. We're really trying to prioritize rest for this trip, so we're not going to be going too nuts. We're not going to be doing a lot of adventurous type of stuff like we usually do when we go traveling out to, you know, different countries and stuff like that. We're more so going to be relaxing, lounging, indulging in doing nothing, and that is something that is very rare for us. But of course, this video is not about that, or not so much about my experience, but more so about how I kind of implement slow living in the way that I prepare for a trip or something big, a big event, stuff like that. So I just want to reiterate for people who are probably new to the channel, if you're not new, you have definitely heard me say this before, but productivity is 100% included in your slow living journey. I 100% stand by that sentiment, because practically speaking, most of us have jobs. Most of us have a lot of responsibilities. Most of us just can't up and drop everything that, you know, we need to get to on the day-to-day. So in order for me, and I would say for anybody else who is in the same boat as me, which I think is 99% of people, you need to have a good productivity tool or structure or system set in place that works for you, so that you can be as efficient as possible with your time, thus freeing up time for your slow living practices. Realistically speaking, I would not be able to actually practice the slow living things that I want to practice if I literally didn't have any time to do it, because I was busy working and trying to get things done, right? So the way that I do that for planning a trip is, ideally, if you get enough opportunity, enough time to plan for a trip several weeks/months in advance, you can get pretty extensive with setting up your productivity system specifically for trip planning. So when I found out that we were going to be traveling to Tulum, I set up a Notion board. You do not have to be as extensive as I am. It's sort of like a brain dump. So I open up a Notion board, start from scratch, and I just throw all of the things that are in my head that I know that I need to get done into the Notion board, and then I just start organizing from there. So as scary as it probably sounded the first time I mentioned it, it's not really that scary. It's more so just like taking all of the stuff, all of the stressors in your head, and throwing it into your Notion board. And then once it's there, once you physically see it and you can see the volume of it, you can kind of pick it apart, organize it, and things start to make so much more sense. And then all of that weight is lifted off of your head, off of your shoulders. So highly recommend doing that, or some version of that if you're not really used to Notion. So I'm actually going to show you my Notion board here. This is what it pretty much looks like. As you can see, it's in dark mode, so it might look different to you if you are used to not dark mode. But as you can see, there are some boards here. There are things like flight, hotel, things to do. Obviously, I'm not gonna go into depth and show you those things, but if you click into them, you can basically add all of the details that you need. So for flights, of course, I put all of my flight information, hotel information, also things like if you want to make note of like the hotel provides a cab service and stuff like that. You can throw that in there as well. So all of this is going to be handy for me. I just remember back in the day when I would go traveling and all of these types of information, documents, etc. would need to be like printed out and you're basically walking around with a binder. This is what I envision that now digitally, and it's just super, super convenient. And you can actually download this so that if you do lose service, if that's an issue for anyone, you can definitely do that. But I did want to click into some other things so that you can actually see it, some things that I'm able to show you. So as you can see here, I sectioned it off like these are the specific Mexico Tulum type things that I'm going to be using when I'm there. But in this section over here, these are more personal things. So, you know, keeping strict with my budget when I'm there, travel requirements before I get there, stuff like that. So I'm actually going to click into travel requirements, and I'm sorry if my hands are super shaky and weird. I'm really stretching my hands out really far here. But yeah, so as you can see here, I clicked into the board, and underneath the travel requirements, I have some stuff here. So I have like making sure I have my passport, making sure I have my flight information, blah, blah, blah. And so I kind of, like I said before, I dumped all of my thoughts into this Notion board, and then after the fact, because I had some time between when I created this board and before actually going on the trip, I went in and I made notes to myself. So you can see that in the red, that next to flight information, I wrote down, make sure, this is a note to myself, make sure that I double check it leading up to the date in case there are any delays or changes so that I can plan accordingly. And then underneath it says cab reservation, which the hotel in my instance does have a cab reservation. I made sure to also highlight that because if there are delays with the flight, I need to let the hotel know. So all of these things can avoid so much stress later on, which allows me to not stress right now. This is such an interesting angle. I hope you don't mind, but speaking about less stress and relaxing a little bit more, as much as I stress productivity and making sure that you get all of your tasks done and a 100% cross-off checklist is always ideal, I should also reiterate that in my checklist, because I'm able to like organize everything in an efficient way, it opens up time for rest. And when I say rest, I really mean that. I really do want to emphasize the fact that rest is just as important as getting all of these things done and checking off your to-do lists and stuff like that. So in my actual to-do list that I have for the weekend upcoming, which is the weekend right before we go traveling, I'll be traveling during the week. So I have the weekend right before. I am prioritizing time to relax. I'm prioritizing time to do the things that I always love doing on the weekend, such as going to the farmer's market or, sitting around and playing video games. And that just calls for such an overall positive experience. A lot of us like to look at travel or look at a big event and be like, okay, we're gonna stress out, we're gonna freak out, it's gonna be a complete disaster, but in the long run it'll be worth it. And I just feel like it doesn't need to always be that way. You can prepare, you can set yourself up for success, and you can have best of both worlds. You can have a great time preparing, you can have a great time planning, you can have a great day before getting on a plane, you can have a great time on the plane. Just don't forget to add that into your productivity system, add that into your calendar, add that into your to-do list, into your Notion board, stuff like that. Don't forget it. I feel like a lot of videos these days, or a lot of content online, makes you believe that if you're going on a trip, if you have an event, if you're traveling, you need to go out and buy like a whole load of stuff, and not just a whole load of stuff to prepare for the trip, but a whole lot of new stuff when you don't necessarily need new stuff, or like cases for stuff when you don't necessarily need all of those cases for all of those things. I bought some stuff for this trip. Once again, I haven't been on a trip since 2019, not a substantial one at the very least. So I did buy some things. For example, I bought like this little case here, and I know I was just talking about cases, but the most important thing about this case is that it has reusable silicone kind of like travel bottles. I like that they're silicone. First of all, that is super cool. But they're reusable is the most important thing. So going forward, if I need to go on a trip, I can just refill this with stuff that I already have at home, as opposed to buying single-use travel size stuff. In certain instances, you'll need the travel size stuff. For example, I got this little travel sized spray for sunscreen because you can't, you know, you can't pour spray from your sunscreen at home into like one of these bottles. I just have a larger version of this at home, so it just made sense for me to get it for this instance. But as you can see, I'm being mindful with the choices that I'm making here when it comes to travel purchases. While I'm making purchases for this trip, it's not necessarily purchases that are ridiculous, unnecessary, excessive, stuff like that. These things are new purchases, but this bag here, I've had this bag I think since 2014. This bag goes with me for every single trip, whether it's a road trip, whether I'm going to hang out at my parents' house for the weekend, or if I'm going on large trips. This is a really, really big bag. It has like a bajillion pockets. So while this purchase is like almost 10 years old, it is still useful to this day. And that's just another mindful choice when it comes to making purchases. While you may not have held on to your 10-year-old backpacks, maybe going forward, if you get a bag that you can see, you know, being super durable and has multi-use and stuff like that, you can invest in that, and then you'll be able to have something that you'll continuously use year after year after year. You do not need a case for your hand sanitizer. You can just leave your hand sanitizer as is. Unless your hand sanitizer is prone to spilling all over the place, I think you'll be set. I hope this video wasn't too scattered. My brain is a little bit scattered right now, not because of the whole travel and planning and stuff like that. Like I said, I am covered, but just this cold came out of nowhere, really threw me off. I did want to end this off by sharing my weekend to-do list, like my weekend right up until the time that we are getting on a plane and heading out of here, because maybe it's helpful to you if you hear like a kind of realistic look into a to-do list before traveling that isn't intense and does prioritize rest and slow living and recharging. Once again, I'm going into my Notion because that is where my to-do list is. Okay, so the first thing on my list is 4 days before we head out, we have a nail appointment. Gotta do these nails. They're looking absolutely terrible. The next day, I am going to be charging up our electronic devices that we don't use on the day-to-day, such as our Switch and our Kindle. So this is going to be kind of like our in-air entertainment, so want to make sure everything there is charged, packed, ready to go. And I'm also going to be cleaning the house, and those two things are going to be done in one day. So just two things in one day. Like I said, the nail thing was in one day. 2 days before we head out, I am going to be filling the kitchen with snacks and basics. I'm also going to prep the firewood and any exercise equipment for house sitters. That's what it's called, for the house sitters. So I just want to make sure that everything is all set up for them, that I don't have to worry about like prepping any of that stuff for when they arrive. I am going to do laundry, including extra bedding for the house sitters. And then once the laundry is all finished, we will pack our bags because all of our clothes will be clean. And those are only 4 things, and we're 2 days out from the trip. I don't think that's bad. Okay, 1 day out from the trip, we're going to clean the fridge of perishables. We're going to empty the garbage, water our plants, the backyard garden, leave our keys and all of our essentials out for the house sitters, and then also give the house sitters like any details that they need to have, whether there's like an emergency or they need to get in contact with us, stuff like that. They're actually going to be arriving the day before we head out, so we are going to hang out with them for a little bit. So that is something that's really prioritizing rest, recharging, fun within the midst of planning a trip. And then the morning of the trip, we are going to just change the sheets out. We already did the laundry a couple of days before, so we're going to change the sheets out so that everything is all clean and set for the house sitters. And then that's pretty much it. It's a very, very short list per day, and I'm a big fan of the dump and divide kind of concept where I dump all of the things that I need to do into my Notion, like I've said so many times in this video, and then divide it evenly, or as evenly as you possibly can throughout the week, so that every day is not super overwhelming and you don't load up on everything the day before. If I did that, I used to do that. If I continue to do that now, I would absolutely lose my mind. There's just not enough time in the day to be doing that type of stuff. I would stress the heck out. I would not sleep, and sleep is important. But that is all for this week's video. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your support while I figure out my creativity, my artistry while I kind of revamp these videos. And I did also want to mention that I have a new release. My first ever digital zine is officially out. It is called Slow Living Autumns, and it's just your go-to guide for having a slow, mindful, and joyful autumn. Right in time for autumn, it has 17 pages of resources, tips, printable worksheets, customizable templates, all sorts of things. There's so much in there, and it took me all year to work on this because I really, really wanted to make sure that it was something I was proud of, but also something that I felt is valuable to you. So I do hope you pick it up. It's only $5. It's like the price of a coffee, but I really, really worked hard on it, and I appreciate you. I appreciate your support, and I hope it helps in your slow living journey. But that is all, and I will talk to you in next week's video.